Welcome to Ren's Philanthropic Insights video podcast series, made to help financial advisors make the most of their clients' charitable giving. I'm your host, Kim Ledger, Ren's SVP of Complex Assets. In this special season, we delve into the stories of generous philanthropists shaping our world and how financial advisors and family offices can help them maximize the impact of their charitable giving. If you haven't been following along with our Philanthropic Insights video and podcast series, be sure to check out the first series that delves into the different ways advisors can leverage DAFs for long-term impact, and the second series on how to make the most of complex asset donations. And in today's episode, we're privileged to have Darcy Addison, philanthropic advisor with Strategic Philanthropy, and her client and accomplished philanthropist, Abigail Milan, a dedicated community leader who has served as president of the PTA, Vice President of Fund Development for the Junior League of Las Vegas, and actively supports women's empowerment initiatives. Currently, she serves as Vice President of her family foundation and Chair of the Family Engagement Committee. Throughout our conversation, we'll uncover her insights on the art of giving, her strategies for impactful philanthropy, and the motivations behind her generosity. Get ready for an enlightening discussion that promises to inspire and inform. Darcy and Abigail, I'm so grateful to have you join us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to have you in the studio. Darcy, can you tell me a little bit about strategic philanthropy and how you work with the clients?
Absolutely. As philanthropic advisors, we work with the clients, whether it's an individual, family, or foundation, to meet them where they're at on their philanthropic journey. So using whatever vehicle their capital is in, whether it's a DAF, whether it's a foundation, and helping deploy that money in the most impactful way possible. And our work is very fun. We work with a variety of different individuals, and one of them is Abigail, who we'll have on the show today.
Well, I got to tell you, I always say I have the coolest job, and I think you might just be rivaling me with that. Getting to help people like Abigail with their philanthropic journey. Abigail, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and about your philanthropic journey?
Absolutely. So my philanthropic journey probably started as a small child, and my parents really instilling in us giving back of your time, talent, or treasure. And when I was 16 and got my first paycheck, they kind of said, you should give some of this, even if it's just a small amount, and started instilling that. So we just continue that moving forward. And then I was lucky enough to be recommended to join the Junior League of Las Vegas when my husband and I lived in Las Vegas briefly. And that was such a fabulous experience. And I got to chair committees with them and be the vice president of fund development and sit on their board, which was a great experience. Yes.
Yeah.
And then it gives you a lot of confidence to go out and do other things. I was the PTO president at my children's preschool, which was a lot of fun and a great leadership opportunity and a lot of fundraising, and sat on the Women's Philanthropy Council for Jewish Nevada and helped plan events for them. And then I had the privilege of being able to sit on my husband's family foundation. And that has been a really great experience, kind of learning that side of philanthropy. And now I'm vice president of the board for that foundation. So it just kind of keeps going. So
I will add that she's not only the vice president of the board of directors for the Family Foundation, she's also chair of the Family Engagement Committee, which has 8 members on the committee and various subcommittees. So she is incredibly and deeply engaged in the work.
That's very cool. What does that mean, the engagement committee?
So we are on the next generation coming into the board.
Got it.
My husband's grandparents left this money to be the family foundation, which is really, we're blessed. And so his uncles and mother have been running that, and they had the opportunity to start bringing the next generation in. And so there are 3 of us from, we call it Gen 5, that sit on the board. And we are now starting to figure out how to get the rest of Gen 5 engaged and plan for the future for our children and their children, and how do we make this sustainable over time. So we have a newsletter subcommittee.
Wow.
We have a opportunity fund subcommittee. We have an intergenerational engagement subcommittee and a discretionary grant subcommittee where we're looking into all of those different areas and how to make everyone feel connected to the Family Foundation. So it's a work in progress. We just started that this year. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And it's such a big topic of engaging that next generation. And Darcy, I'm sure you see that a lot in your work as well. And a lot of advisors that we work with and folks that listen to our program want to know how to engage that next generation. So I love that engagement committee. That's very cool. So are there certain guiding principles or values that inform your philanthropic efforts for you personally? Or
me personally?
And how do you prioritize all of that?
I think I'm a type A person and a bit of a control freak. And so delving into that philanthropic world can seem very overwhelming because every cause is such a valid cause. So I try to stay very community focused.
Okay.
What can be done where I live in the organizations that I'm involved with? What are the biggest issues for the area that I'm in, and how can we help with that? And what do we feel passionately about? My husband and I, we talk about it a lot. Where do we want to focus our giving? What's important to us at this time? And that can shift and is malleable. And so that's what we focus on. If everybody would just focus on their own little community, I think it would be really great. And so I feel like that's what I can control. I can control, my household, what we're doing, and try to make an impact in the community where we live. So we try to focus that way.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So I know a lot of our listeners are passionate about DAFs. We're passionate about DAFs. I mean, it's what we do. And there are times that families will use DAFs as one piece of that overall philanthropic strategy. So could you talk about the role that DAFs have played in your philanthropic journey?
Absolutely. It's been a bit of a learning curve for me about DAFs. My husband went to a convention in New York and it was talked about there, and he came home and said, we need to have a DAF. And I went, okay, what is that? And so
what does it even mean? What's a DAF? And do you say DAF or DAF or it's
well, and I didn't realize that it was a DAF, that the letter stood for something.
Yeah.
I thought a DAF, okay, great. And so he gave me very limited, and he was just like, it's great for our taxes. Okay, fine. So I've slowly been learning about the benefits of having one, how easy it is to manage and make it work for you. And then it really was just like a couple months ago that my husband said, well, this is something so great because we can leave it for our children. And I didn't even realize that. So that's been really kind of exciting to think about it that way. And we're trying to be very thoughtful with it and seed it, and grow it. And we have a budget every year of what we can personally give out, and to be very mindful of that and have conversations about how we're going to divvy that out and what's important to us. And then I'm excited to be able to use it as a tool someday to kind of teach my children how to give, which I think is great. So
yeah, and maybe we're going to get to this in a minute, but in working with your kids, I know that there are things that you were telling me about last week that you've done with your kids that I just think are so cool. Do you mind sharing that?
Absolutely. So the most recent one, so we are an interfaith household. I am Christian and my husband is Jewish. So December is a jam-packed month for us. And it has started to become very overwhelming. Hanukkah gifts, Christmas gifts, Santa Claus gifts. The children get a lot. And so we sat down and really thought about how to teach them to give, and that there's a joy in giving, sometimes more than in receiving. And so for Hanukkah, we did 4 days of giving and 4 days of receiving. So they got 4 nights of gifts, and we did 4 nights of community projects. which were great. We packed 70 boxes for a local food shelter, and that allowed us to get our neighbors involved. We solicited for donations and then had a packing party and had friends over to help us pack all the boxes. And we supported a local organization that we put together these little kits for non-neurotypical children to go to the synagogues, like fidget bags of little spinners and things like that for them to put together. So, and those are just a few, but it opened up conversations for us with our children to talk to them about how not everybody has food around the holiday times, and this is something we can do for them. And that, there are people who might live around the street or go to school with you that this might benefit. And that, there are children whose brains work differently than yours and they have trouble sitting through a service at a church or a synagogue. And so, these fidget bags are really important, and it allowed them to ask questions and give back, because children don't have a concept of money and what something costs. Yeah. So writing a check doesn't mean anything to them. So something tangible for them to look at and see and do and understand what kind of a difference that makes, I think, is really important. So we worked hard to try to accomplish that with them.
Gosh, I love it.
So well said, Abigail. I just want to add, Kim, that is really the philanthropic spirit that is teachable to your kids. And when we talk about engaging Gen 6, the generation that is Abigail's children and the rest of the cousins' children, it isn't just about what does the foundation do or how does a foundation run. It's thinking about ways to involve them so they understand the spirit of philanthropy.
Yeah, I love that. And so, Darcy, you have worked with other clients as well. And how have they used DAFs in their philanthropic journey?
I think DAFs can complement the work that you do otherwise, whether through a foundation or your volunteer time, and then vice versa, your volunteer time, where you spend your time, talent, and treasure complements what you do the other way. So, Abigail is focused on the foundation and the major grant areas that we have, which may not be what she does in her own personal giving, right? So any client who has a DAF can do what they are passionate about through that. And then the rest of their time can be focused on other areas, right? So you can complement through gifts through the DAF.
And we talk about that all of the time, about having the foundations, that there's a place for both and that they are complementary. It's not an or versus, it's an and. The Family Foundation and a DAF. So yeah, thank you so much for that story. And so do you have projects, Abigail, is there a passion project that you would, of yours, that whether it's through the DAF or the foundation that you're particularly excited about?
The foundation, we give to so many worthwhile organizations, and I love them all. My favorite, which when Gen 5 was starting to get involved, they gave us an allotment of money and allowed us to work together to try to decide where to give it, get a focus area. And, so we decided as a generation that we wanted to focus on early childhood development. And one of the organizations that we decided to give to is called Nurses for Newborns. And it is out of St. Louis, and it pays for nurses to go into
rural areas.
I was thinking urban, and I was like, that's not right. The word left me for a second. To go into rural areas and help mothers of newborn children and take care of those children who otherwise might not be able to come into the city to get the treatment or the help that they need. And when they took Gen 5 onto the board, they took our projects with them. So we've been funding that for a while now, and I really love it. It's a great organization. They do great work.
We actually have a check-in with them tomorrow for our major grants, and they'll be happy to hear this podcast afterwards. But it is home visiting, and that continuity of care with the same person makes a really big difference in the mother and the children's lives. And so they're really showing great numbers of how well the children are thriving, how well the families are thriving. And so, as Abigail said, this is how the board is listening to the younger generation, and we hope to do the same when we involve Gen 6, which takes a lot of planning. They might not be ready to start getting engaged with the foundation for a number of years still, but we do the planning now as to how we can engage them.
Well, and that's what I was just going to ask is, really a question for both of you is, how do you approach that long-term planning? And as you look at the sustainability?
Oh, that's a big question. I think we just have to keep remembering that we're going to grow. Yeah. And so how sustainable is something over time, really? What's the exponential growth of our family versus the exponential growth of our principal? Mm-hmm. And I think at a certain point, the family is going to outgrow the principal. And so we can't just play fast and loose with it. We have to be very conscientious. And how do we engage people in a way that isn't just giving them money to give out themselves? How do we engage them to make them feel connected? But I also think what's so fabulous about having this family foundation is that it's such a wonderful learning opportunity that most people do not get to be a part of. And we are very blessed and privileged to have this opportunity. So it teaches you how to be philanthropic in your own life. And that's why I want people to be engaged, is to, one, have that time together. Just through these few months of the engagement committee, I've learned so much about my cousins that I didn't know before, and what their passions are and what their interests are and what their life experiences have been, because we are so geographically dispersed. But also, that we are lucky and blessed to have this opportunity and to learn. Not everybody gets to see what a grant cycle is and to read through those and to give grants and to sit at a table like that. And so that was the reason I wanted to join the Family Foundation to begin with. And all that just enhances your knowledge that you can take back to your personal life. And it makes you a savvy donor, and it teaches you what questions to ask and what things to look for, and how to look at a nonprofit, P&L statement. One of our first meetings, one of the cousins said, well, this one didn't end the year with very much money. I don't think they're being very fiscally responsible. And it was like, it's called a nonprofit. They're not supposed to have a profit. That's actually good. It's a completely different look than if you're running a business where you want lots of profit. So the learning that you're able to do is so invaluable. And that's the benefit of having this.
Yeah, I'll add, as Abigail said, the family is literally, this is what I like to say, from Monterey to Miami, and they are in those cities, right? So they are from Monterey to Miami. And so this is also how the foundation work complements staffs, right? Their own personal staffs, is that the learning they're doing in the foundation, as Abigail said, is being brought to the communities. So as they learn those tools for being effective philanthropists, they are deploying that in their own communities. And it really is something, I'm so glad Abigail pointed that out, that it's not something everybody gets to do. Mm-hmm. They are very lucky that they get to have this training ground, because if more people had this, we would have different communities. Mm-hmm.
Well, as you, I'm going to ask you now for advice. So let's say you're working with, or what advice would you give to family office staff or to advisors who are working with charitably minded individuals or families who are considering maybe stepping up that their own philanthropic efforts? What advice would you give to them?
Our experience with strategic philanthropy has been so fabulous that I don't know if I would have any advice to give them. They've done a really great job. But I think what they do well is they took time to listen to all of us and hear where we were at, and really kind of step back and look at the situation as a whole and what we were trying to accomplish and where we wanted to go, and then work with us to put a plan together as to how to get where we want to be. And I think that's really important. They didn't have any agenda other than to help us accomplish our agenda. And they brought so much extra information to the foundation that we didn't even ask for. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So they brought so much to the table that we didn't even know about as possibilities and information and insight that has been invaluable. So I don't know if I have any advice for them other than just keep it up, but they've been fabulous. So
great.
Well, thank you, Abigail.
Yeah.
And Darcy, what advice would you give to like financial advisors or family office staff as they're working with their clients? What advice would you give to them?
I would say, first of all, as Abigail said, just encouraging the conversations and really listening, but lean on your partners, right? The way that strategic philanthropy works with the family and with their other sets of advisors, their accountants, their financial advisors, their family offices, if they have one, is we work as part of a team. We are the fourth wheel on the car to make it run. We are not trying to run this independently. We do not we work with the financial advisor. We do not try to step on their toes. We are not the financial experts. And so lean on the other partners and admit what you don't know or what you need to learn to be able to have the right conversations. We have calls scheduled, coming up that are working all together. We have, we meet with the board chair to talk about the agenda. We meet with the financial advisors to go over the financials. We don't pretend to work in a vacuum all by ourselves. And I think that makes the difference so that when we come together with the family, it all feels cohesive. And I will also say, just in terms of, advice to other philanthropic advisors out there, it's really, as Abigail said, meeting your clients where you are. That is the biggest thing. And they are really driving what they need, and the education they need and the work that they want to accomplish in the world is driving where we are going. That's our North Star.
That is such a great summary. Thank you so much. I think we are at time today, and I want to just again say thank you to you both. Abigail, you are an inspiration as well. And what you're doing with your kids and bringing up that next generation, I just love it. I love hearing that story, and it gives me goosebumps. And Darcy, your great work in helping the family, really appreciate that as well. So I really appreciate you guys being here, and have a great day.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you, Kim.
Thanks everyone for watching, or if you turned in via podcast, thanks for listening. If you want to learn more about Ren and how we might be able to help with your philanthropic program needs, visit reninc.com or email us at consulting@reninc.com. We'd also love to hear if you have questions or topics about planned giving you want us to talk about. And of course, don't miss the great information we have in our Advisors Philanthropic Insights newsletter. Sign up at reninc.com/advisor insights. Find all the links mentioned in the show in the description. And you'll find expert tips daily on our social channels. Check it out. Until next time, I'm Kim Ledger. Give wisely.